Good morning, Jay. How you doing?
Doing great. Good to check in with you. We got a bunch to get to. Let's start off with the Wolves, who finished up a preseason last night. They didn't play their starters. They lost to Denver. Thoughts on the Wolves heading into the regular season next week?
Yeah, I'm still kind of curious to see how Randall and DiVincenzo kind of fit in. Obviously, you're not going to see a lot of it in the preseason. So I think I like the trade. I like what they got back. Randall's going to give them a different kind of production than Cat did. I think DiVincenzo off the bench with his three-point shooting is really going to add something to him. So, but it's going to take a while. This is going to be a process for them to get used to Finch's system, get used to playing with Anthony Edwards, particularly Randall, and not having the ball in his hands as much as he was used to in New York. So, I think eventually it's going to look the way they wanted to, or the way they envisioned it when they made this trade. But I think it may take some time for everything to kind of come together and gel.
Do you think this potentially could be a better team than last year's team?
I think deeper, yeah, and I think it'll be a different type of team. Obviously, they're going to lose Cat's offensive outside shooting, but I think Randall's the production I think is going to be similar. It's just going to look different and going to come differently. I think what you lose with Cat's outside shooting and three-point shooting, DiVincenzo, I think, is just a terrific piece that they got back, and they wouldn't have made this trade without him. He's an ascending player. He brings them some toughness. I like his three-point shooting. And so I think it could be. Yeah, I think it could be. I think they're going to be deeper, this team will be, than what we saw last year. And then I want to see what Naz Reid does. We've seen him when Cat was out. He flourished and became a vital part of what they're doing in their foundation. And so now he has more opportunity to do that.
Do you think DiVincenzo was the more important piece in that trade than Randall?
No. Randall was the center point, but the fact that they were able to get him included in the deal, I don't think the deal gets done without it. I think that's what pushed it to the finish line. But Randall, clearly was the centerpiece of it, and he's an all-star and highly productive player. It's going to be interesting. He's going to have to adjust his game, and I'm curious to see, because he's used to having the ball in his hands a lot. I think he's a really good passer as well. But learning to play with Ant, because this is Ant's team, and everything's going to run through Ant. And so I'm curious to see how that looks and works. And it's going to take some time for those two to get used to playing with each other. And remember, Randall hasn't played, in a while now. So but he has been, he's been with Finch. He knows Finch in his system, but being in it with this collection of players with Jay McDaniels and Ant and Mike Conley and Nas. So it's just going to take some adjustment period for those guys to kind of figure each other out.
Chip, we got WNBA Finals Game 4 tonight. Lynx hosting New York. We've had some interesting games. Lynx fell way behind in games 1 and 2. Came back and won game 1. Couldn't do it in game 2. And then in game 3, they had the lead early, and they couldn't hold on to it. And New York made the plays down the stretch. So we got a game 4 must win for the Lynx. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be this will be a test of their resilience, because when you lose a game in the manner that they did Wednesday night, where you lead throughout, you had the big lead early, you give it away, and then Ionescu hits that, just dagger of a shot from 28 feet, that step back to really break your heart with the game winner. That's tough to respond from when you only have 48 hours. And so, but I like this Lynx team. They've been tough all year. I think defensively, they're always going to give themselves a chance because they're so good defensively. And you're right, this series, the first 3 games have just been marvelous theater in terms of the tension and drama and competitiveness. We've seen the Lynx win when they were down by 18 on the road and lose when they were up by 15 at home. And you just don't see that too often in a series. And so the biggest thing for them, Jay, they fought hard. The defense was great the other night, but they missed 26 shots in the paint. They were 14 of 40 in the paint. There's your ball game. I mean, if you make a couple of those, they win the game. And so they need to shoot the ball better. They know that. They were disappointed with how they played offensively. But, I mean, it's going to be, obviously a tough challenge. They got to regroup emotionally. And just the Liberty has 3 stars. They have a big 3. And when Breanna Stewart gets it going like she did in the second half last game, they're awfully hard to beat.
Chip, let's talk about the Vikings-Lions game. Big game between these two teams. First meeting of the year. The Vikings hosting the Lions. Minnesota hasn't lost. The Lions have lost just once. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a Vikings-Lions game has this much importance. We just haven't seen this historically, and it might be a matchup of two of the three best teams or in the NFC. The injury report is long for the Vikings, and coming out of the bye, you would hope that wouldn't be the case. But I'm curious to see if Aaron Jones is able to go. I think he'll probably be questionable. We saw what the offense looked like without him in London. I was at that game when they were playing the Jets. Second half, it was just they were kind of a mess offensively, and so his importance was evident that day. And to me, this whole game comes down to, can the Vikings defense stop Detroit's running game? Because if they can get both of those going with Montgomery and Gibbs, Detroit's offense is really tough to defend. I mean, they lead the NFL in scoring at 30 points per game. And when they're able to do both, run the ball, and that opens it up for Goff and those wide receivers, they're really hard. The challenge is going to be more difficult without, looks like Blake Cashman, their linebacker, who's been just terrific pickup from. It looks like he's not going to be able to play, I think, because of turf toe, and he's been so important to that defense in terms of just his production and also signal calling and making sure everybody's in the right spots when they lined up. So that'll be a tough challenge, but I think it's going to be a great matchup again because you have the highest scoring offense in the NFL going against that defense. Brian Flores' defense, which I think they're second or third in points allowed, and they've just been really good containing, a number of different types of offenses. So, but it really, I think to me, it comes down to, can they stop the run? If they stop the run and contain that part of it, I think the Vikings win.
So what we saw from the Jets, especially in the second half, is a lot of quick passes, get the ball out, and Detroit, they tend to do that anyway. Is that going to be difficult for Flores to try to scheme against it?
Yeah, I think that's what teams are trying to do just every week because of the pressure. You're trying to mitigate their pass rush and where they're coming from. And so I'm sure he'll have a plan for it. They've been good about, even when that has happened, of tackling and limiting yards after contact, because when you do that, and if they break tackles, that's when they turn into big gains. So this team has been a really good tackling team. And so Flores, he had a great quote this week where he said, he fights fire with fire in terms of a team trying to be aggressive against him. So he seems to relish these challenges of going against these really creative offensive coordinators and offenses that have a lot of different weapons. So I'm sure he'll have a great game plan. And obviously they have a lot of skill players, a lot of speed, but they're still a physical team. I mean, Dan Campbell, he wants to run the ball, and that's where they start with. And so I'm sure that's where the number one emphasis is for Flores.
Is Hockenson going to play in this game?
No, they haven't ruled him out, but I doubt it. My guess is he'll be back for the Rams game on Thursday night, next Thursday. He spoke yesterday. I wasn't there, but it sounds like he's hit every benchmark and is feeling great about where he's at in the recovery and all the things on his timeline. But my hunch is, we'll get the status report later this morning, but my hunch is he will play Thursday in L.A.
So, Chip, Darnold's on a one-year contract. We still don't know if McCarthy's a good quarterback, average quarterback, whatever. We have no idea on him. What do you think the Vikings are thinking about in regards to their future at that position?
Well, I still think this was just a one-year thing for Sam Darnold, and he's been fabulous. I mean, obviously the Jets game was his worst game, and he didn't perform well there. But up until there, I mean, he had 4 straight games of over 100 passer rating, so he's been terrific. But this is still, I believe, a bridge situation, and you hope that McCarthy's recovery is as expected, and he will be ready to go for OTAs and all this offseason workouts. But he's still the guy that they're invested in, and they're going to have their future pinned to. And it's unfortunate, an injury, obviously, because you would like to, even if he didn't play this year, he's getting the practice reps. Now he's going through all the team meetings and all those things, so he's part of the team in terms of just the mental part of it, but just not being on the field and having the practice reps is a setback. But I don't think it changes in any way their plan or their future for his timeline for being their future guy after this season.
Chip, are you hearing any potential names to buy the Twins?
Me and you. No, I haven't yet. It's still obviously early, and ideally you would hope it'd be someone local, Minnesota. obviously the pool is smaller when you're just limiting to that, but haven't heard any names, and I'm sure in the months, this is going to be something that, is not a quick thing. It'll take weeks and months for the vetting process and for people to figure out, line up groups of people that, they're in part of their ownership group to approach them. So, but yeah, that was unexpected, but in my opinion, I think it was necessary to have a new regime.
Chip, is it going to end up being the Yankees versus the Dodgers in the World Series?
I would think so. They look like, the two best teams right now to me. And I know people probably get sick of hearing about those two teams, the big spenders, and that wouldn't bode well probably in public perception for the teams that are that don't have the revenue streams that those two teams have. But that would be an absolutely classic matchup and some star power there for sure.
How good does this go for football team?
They need to be more consistent. Obviously, they've won 2, and they've kind of changed the trajectory of their season. The USC win was much needed. They needed that's really the only game that they played a complete game. We've seen halves where they've been really good, and halves where they've just they've fallen apart. And so they're still kind of looking for that, what they did against USC, and have that complete game. But defensively, they're creating a lot of turnovers, which is good. And I like the quarterback. I think Brosmer's been a really nice addition for them. He's a clutch performer. He's accurate. He's mature. He processes things really quickly. So he's, I wasn't sure what to expect with him coming from New Hampshire and a much lower level at the FCS, but he has been a really terrific addition for them. And now they just have to find that consistency, because they have winnable games here down the stretch, and that'll, that's obviously going to determine how we look at this season.
Chip, anything on the Star Tribune you currently have up or that you're working on, you want people to be aware of?
Yeah, I wrote about the Lynx game 4 today and kind of where they're at and what this series has meant. But also, I'm not ready to count this team out. That was obviously a big blow for them. But this team has showed some toughness all year, and I'll be surprised if they don't respond accordingly tonight. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I think you'll see an effort like you saw the other night.
Very good. Chip, thanks for filling in today. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Joe. Nice to see you, man. That's
Chip Scoggins. Chip is a Star Tribune sports columnist. He's filling in for Jim Souhan today. And Jim Souhan, Chip Scoggins, brought to you by the Green Mill in downtown St. Cloud. Dream Getaway 81. Let's get you your code word. First one of the day is SEEDS. 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 Type that in. You can win a vacation of a lifetime. First code word is SEEDS. SEEDS. Less of code words at 10:20 and 12:28 today. Next on WJON, World and National News from ABC.